Even though the original Pixel phone launched all the way back in 2016, I think that most of us understand that we had kind of a soft relaunch in 2021 with the Pixel 6. Not only did the design language change quite radically, we've also seen a pretty big strategic shift from Google as well. The Pixel 6 undercut the iPhone 13 by $200. That seemed like the strategy: be cheaper than the iPhone. But over the last few years, we've saw the Pixel prices go up and up and up. But a strange thing has happened. Their sales have increased as well, and I think that was all part of the plan. Now with the Pixel 10 starting at $799, matching the iPhone 17's starting price of $799, Google just had their best quarter ever for selling phones, and I don't think that was a coincidence. About 6 a.m. this morning, I was laying in bed scrolling through different TikTok videos, trying to delay the fact that I was going to have to get out of my warm bed and step out into the cold house around me. And I saw something in a video that I see fairly regularly. I saw a person asking someone with disgust in their voice, "Do you use an Android phone?" Yes, indeed, in 2025, there is absolutely no shortage of iPhone users who still look down on Android users and Android phones. Android phones are still seen by a large swath of the population here in the United States as the phone you buy when you can't afford an iPhone. Or maybe you're a little bit weird. Why wouldn't you want an iPhone? That's what everyone else has. That is still a thing, and there is still absolutely a huge perception problem with Android phones, at least here in the States. Think back with me, if you will, to the Pixel 5. Now, this is a phone that I actually think was a lot better than a lot of people maybe realized. It's maybe a little bit overpriced at the time. I think it was like $699 whenever it came out. This is a phone that my wife still absolutely loved. But think about the Pixel 5 and think about what came directly after that with the Pixel 6. Think about how big of a shift in design language and also just in the overall build we had from 5 to 6. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a Pixel 6, but I do have a Pixel 7. This is the big boy Pixel 7, but it's still a Pixel 7. And this is a phone that when Google launched it, or again, the Pixel 6, I think it's equally true there. What they had was a phone that made a huge leap in build. And if you handed that phone to an iPhone user and you ask them, does this feel significantly cheaper than their iPhone? They were likely to say no. Whereas with the Pixel 5, they were likely to say yes, just because of the way that it was built. Not that it was a bad phone, but the way that it was built was not very iPhone-like. It didn't scream premium. It didn't scream aspirational device in the way that later Pixels, starting with the 6, would. Oh, and these phones were cheaper than the iPhone. And that trend has only continued with the Pixel 8, 9, and 10 becoming more and more and more premium. Google's phones now feel absolutely tremendous. And let's be honest, they also feel very much like iPhones. And that is 1000% intentional. It's also intentional that you are seeing tons of advertisements from Google directly targeting Apple, whether it's for their lack of AI features that they promised over a year ago that they've never really delivered on, comparing the iPhone to vanilla ice cream, whereas the Pixel is seen as this incredibly smart phone that is different and unique and much more vibrant. This is all, again, part of the plan that started with the Pixel 6. And like I said at the top of the video, this strategy is absolutely working. In Q1 of 2025, Pixel sales in the US surged 28% year over year. If you go back to 2022, when you're talking about smartphone market share $600 or higher, so premium smartphones, Pixels don't even register on the graph, okay? It's just Samsung and it's just Apple. It's only those two. In 2025, Google is now on the map. They now have 7% market share. And you may look at that and say 7% is a tiny amount. But when you started at basically zero, that's pretty impressive. And when you consider that Samsung only has 12%, that is extremely impressive. Are they going to be taking the number one spot from Apple anytime soon? Absolutely not. But you can't sit there and tell me that this is not evidence that their strategy is working. But let's dig a little bit deeper into how raising your prices can equate to more sales. And it all goes back to me to that perception problem. iPhones are seen as aspirational devices that you just have to have if you're anybody. And Android phones are the cheap phone you buy if you're not somebody. Google is doing what they can to fight back against that problem, even if they do undercut themselves in at least one way that we'll talk about here in just a minute. So, of course, it started with the refined look of later Pixel phones that looked a bit more like iPhones and just, I think, quite radically improved the build quality. But the price increase is another signal, and this might be crazy to some people, but there's this thing called the Veblen effect that we have to talk about. We'll just use this AI overview because I know everybody will have no problem with that at all. The Veblen effect is the economic phenomenon where demand for a good increases as its price increases, contrary to the law of demand. It is driven by the desire for conspicuous consumption, where goods are purchased to display wealth and social status, not just for utility. And let me just tell you, there is absolutely a segment of iPhone users, I think a large segment of iPhone users, for whom that is a perfect description. I'm not saying iPhones are bad. I'm not saying that iPhone users are universally just buy iPhones to be seen with an iPhone, but I think that it is pretty darn obvious that that is a huge piece of what sells iPhones. Okay, I don't think that that's insulting. Actually, I think that it's maybe the most impressive thing that Apple has ever done. They've made the iPhone a social status symbol for a lot of people. I think that what Google started to understand with the Pixel 6 is that if you want to take sales away from Apple, you have to make a phone that's like the iPhone. Let's put this another way. You can't sell a premium aspirational device at budget prices because the price undercuts that messaging and it undercuts the perception of your device. Yeah, it looks nice and everything, but it's cheap, it's inexpensive. That means it's not aspirational. That means it doesn't signal anything to the people around me. It just signals you bought a cheap phone. And here's what's fun about this. It seems like MSRP is what actually matters because people buy their iPhones on contract. They're subsidized and they're cheaper. But in their minds, they're getting a great deal on a really nice, premium, expensive thing. When Google launches their phone at high prices and then runs a sale on it 2 months later, or whatever it is, a month later, they drop the prices for a sale. The point there is that people go, oh, wow, this is my golden ticket, my opportunity to get one of these premium phones at a lower price. If they just started at a lower price, you would think that would be better, but Google, leaning into the Veblen effect, seems to disagree. All Google has done since the Pixel 6 is hold their phone up to the iPhone and say, look at us, compare us to the iPhone. Please compare us to the iPhone. We are in the same territory in terms of build quality, in terms of price. We are just as nice. Oh, and we can do stuff that your iPhone absolutely cannot do. Your iPhone is boring. It's old. It's not as smart. Look how much smarter our phone is. It's just as premium. It's just as aspirational, but it's smarter. It's different. It's Google. It's Pixel. And again, I keep saying this, but you can look at the numbers and they are going up. So whether you like this or not, and look, I totally get why people would say, I wish this phone was cheaper. It's hard for me to afford and it's hard for me to justify buying that. I totally understand. We all want nice things for less money. I just don't think that Google sees it the same way. I think that they are doing a whole bunch of things to be more and more like Apple. We can even talk about on the software side of things. This is, again, something I think is highly based around perception, and it's going to piss some people off, but they think it's going to be a positive down the road. We've all seen the controversy about Google limiting side loading. If you're going to side load an application on your Android phone sometime in the not so distant future, and that APK has not gotten attached to it, a developer who has verified themselves with Google, which basically means they've told Google who they are, that side loading process may be blocked. This is a very iPhone, Apple-like policy. And I keep saying this, it's about perception. They want to be seen as Apple is seen as a phone that is safe and secure. It's not the wild, wild west where I'm going to get malware. I'm going to get a virus on my phone. My iPhone doesn't get viruses. Why would I buy an Android phone? This is about perception. And again, it might piss you off, and that's valid, but I don't think Google cares. And because I know I'm going to get tons of comments about how the Play Store has a bunch of malware in it, Google is working on that too. You probably just haven't heard anything about it because the changes didn't have nearly as big an uproar as the aforementioned changes. Back in July of 2023, Google started requiring developer verification for new Play console accounts. So if you want to have an app in the Play Store, you have to verify yourself. And Google claims this has been quite successful, and they are doing more and more things to reduce the amount of problematic apps that are in the Play Store. You, again, just probably didn't hear about it and haven't been hearing about it. For better or for worse, I think it's pretty clear that Google is trying to capture more of that iPhone market. And if they have to sacrifice some of the enthusiast market that they have had for a long time to do that, I think that's a trade that they are willing to make. And I think they've been signaling that to us since the Pixel 6. Increasingly nicer and nicer hardware, but really we're just talking about the aesthetics, the build quality, how it feels in the hand. We're seeing the increased prices. We're seeing more and more focus on the user interface and animations, things like that. And we are seeing policy changes which make the Pixel phones, make Android phones in general, more and more like iPhones. Every single signal, all arrows are pointing in the same direction for me, and I think it's pretty obvious. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Subscribe for more content like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.